Netflix paid $3 million for the rights to a romantic novel, handed it to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to develop, and 3 years later, there is no director, no cast, and Hollywood insiders are using the word baffled to describe what happened. Meanwhile, the streaming giant just officially cut ties with Meghan's lifestyle brand. And somewhere in a Montego mansion, a couple who once sat across from Oprah Winfrey boasting about their Netflix partnership is watching their media empire collapse in real time. The irony here is almost too perfect to be accidental. Harry sat on that couch in March 2021, fresh off abandoning his family and his country, proudly announcing that Netflix had become not just a partner in content, but a partner in their entire vision. This was the company that was going to make them independent, that was going to prove they did not need the palace machinery to succeed. Netflix was their golden ticket, their validation that leaving the royal family had been the right call. But here is what Harry apparently failed to consider while signing those contracts. Netflix was simultaneously producing The Crown, a show that routinely humiliated his grandmother, mocked his father, and turned his family's private pain into entertainment consumed by millions. The late Queen reportedly despised the actress, playing her in the later seasons. Prince Philip was portrayed without what the family considered appropriate sympathy, and Harry had no problem cashing checks from the same company doing all of this damage. Now, that same company is pulling back, and according to sources close to the situation, they are not just stepping away from jam sales. They are quietly positioning themselves to potentially tell the Sussex story whether Harry and Meghan cooperate or not. The people who made you, as one industry veteran put it, eventually decide to break you. The announcement about the Andrew documentary should have sent chills down Harry's spine. Netflix is developing a series about the Prince Andrew fallout from the same production team behind The Crown. A source with knowledge of the streaming giant strategy explained that if the Andrew content performs well with audiences, Sussex content will follow. Not content with the Sussexes' content about them. This represents a fundamental shift in the power active that Harry and Meghan have never had to confront. When they control the narrative through their own documentary, through carefully managed interviews, they could shape how the world saw their story. But a Netflix dramatization of their post-royal chaos would be entirely outside their control. Someone else would decide which fights to highlight, which failures to emphasize, which moments of alleged hypocrisy to dramatize for maximum viewer engagement. The Crown established a template for taking real royal events and turning them into prestige, music, television. Andrew's scandal proved there is an appetite for watching the monarchy's darker chapters unfold on screen. The Sussex departure, with its accusations of ism, its family fractures, its endless contradictions between stated values and actual behavior, offers even richer material for a 6-part series. Harry would suddenly find himself experiencing exactly what he claims to have fled. His private moments interpreted by strangers, his motivations questioned publicly, his wife potentially portrayed by an actress who might not present her sympathetically. And unlike the tabloid coverage he has spent years and millions fighting in court, he would have no legal recourse against a fictionalized dramatization. The source noted something particularly telling about how this might unfold. Meghan probably would not care much if someone played her on screen. She has already been the subject of those Lifetime movies, and she seemed unbothered by simplified versions of her romance being broadcast to millions. But for Harry, this would constitute precisely the invasion of privacy he has been raging against for years. The difference is that this time, the invasion would come from a company he voluntarily partnered with, using material he voluntarily made public. Prince Harry has branded the Daily Mail's defense of their journalism as utterly crazy in his ongoing high court battle. But what is emerging from the courtroom tells a rather different story than the one Harry has been selling for years. Journalists are now testifying, and their accounts are systematically dismantling Harry's central claims about how stories about him were obtained. Rebecca English, one of the reporters Harry accused, offered testimony that reads like a journalism textbook. She described receiving tips from people who called news desks voluntarily, following up on those tips through standard reporting methods and publishing stories based on what sources close to Harry himself were sharing. This is not phone hacking. This is not illegal surveillance. This is people in Harry's own circle picking up telephones and calling journalists with information they wanted made public. The defense has labeled Harry's allegations utterly crazy because the evidence suggests a much simpler explanation for how certain stories ended up in print. Harry's friends talked. His acquaintances talked. People at parties talked. The traditional machinery of celebrity gossip operated exactly as it always has, with insiders trading information for attention, favors, or simply the thrill of being connected to a story. Lady Colin Campbell, who knows the judge presiding over this case, offered insight into how the courtroom active might play out. This particular judge, she explained, has no tolerance for theatrical displays or emotional manipulation. The weeping, the proclamations about suffering, the attempts to paint himself as perpetual victim. None of it will carry weight in a courtroom focused on evidence and legal standards. And then there is the credibility problem that hangs over everything Harry says about media intrusion. The man who now claims the press obtained private information without permission has previously spoken openly about highly personal experiences in his own memoir, including intimate moments from his youth, past substance use, descriptions of his military service, and a physical altercation with his brother. You cannot simultaneously demand privacy and monetize your most intimate moments. You cannot sue the media while being of the media. Harry signed deals with Netflix, Spotify, and Penguin Random House. He became a content creator, a media personality, a man who profits from public attention. The judge will have to reconcile Harry's claims of victimhood with his choices to repeatedly, voluntarily, and lucratively expose his own life to global audiences. The frozen Todger passage from Spare has become a kind of shorthand for this contradiction. Harry included that detail because he thought it was funny or relatable or would sell books. But when journalists report on his romantic life or his health or his personal struggles, suddenly that becomes an unforgivable violation. The inconsistency is not lost on legal observers, and it will not be lost on the judge. Meet Me at the Lake was supposed to be the project that proved Harry and Meghan could succeed in Hollywood on creative merit. Netflix purchased the rights to Carly Fortune's best-selling novel for around $3 million, and Archwell Productions was positioned to turn it into a major film. The book had buzz, the streaming giant had money, the Sussexes had their names attached as producers. 3 years later, there is no director. There is no cast. Industry sources described the project as languishing in a development purgatory that defies easy explanation. A well-placed Hollywood source told Page 6 that 3 years in development for a movie like this at Netflix simply is not good. Projects with momentum attract talent. Projects without momentum sit in folders gathering digital dust. The pattern extends beyond that single film. Cookie Queens, a documentary about Girl Scout cookies that Meghan's production company brought to the Sundance Film Festival, has not been purchased by Netflix or any other distributor. The film played at one of the industry's most important festivals, received some positive attention, and then vanished into the void where unsold documentaries go to be forgotten. Another romantic novel adaptation, The Wedding Date, sits in the same developmental limbo, announced with fanfare, reported on by entertainment media, and then nothing. No casting announcements, no director attached, no production timeline, just another project with Archwell's name on it that seems unable to move forward. A source close to the situation offered a blunt assessment of what this means for the Sussexes' Netflix relationship. I don't know how long this new deal is for, but if they don't have anything to show soon, I can't imagine it will be renewed. First look deals require producers to actually produce things. The studio pays a retainer for the privilege of first refusal on projects. But that arrangement only makes sense if projects materialize. Netflix is not in the business of paying people to not make content. The contrast with their early Netflix output is striking. The Harry and Meghan docuseries performed well because it offered something the public wanted, an unfiltered look at their side of the royal family conflict. Audiences tuned in for the drama, the accusations, the tears. But that well has been tapped. The family has been attacked. The stories have been told. What remains is supposed to be actual creative work. And actual creative work appears beyond what Archwell can deliver. Paula Frolic dropped a bombshell that explains why every Sussex project seems to stall before reaching production. Sources told her that Meghan wants to direct, not produce, not consult, direct. She wants to be the person calling the shots on set, making creative decisions, controlling how scenes are filmed and edited. Netflix's response to this demand has been unambiguous rejection. According to Freud reporting, the streaming giant does not want Meghan anywhere near the actual production of these projects except in name only. Her involvement with Love, Meghan apparently confirmed their worst fears about what working closely with her looks like. She was described as a micromanager on everything related to that series, and the experience left Netflix determined to keep her at arm's length from future productions. The word toxic gets thrown around carelessly in Hollywood, but multiple sources have used it specifically to describe Meghan's reputation within the industry. Her name attached to a project does not attract talent. It repels talent. Actors who might otherwise consider a Netflix romantic comedy suddenly become unavailable. Directors with options choose other opportunities. The Meet Me at the Lake development nightmare makes more sense when you understand that attaching yourself to a Sussex production means attaching yourself to Meghan's management style. One industry observer explained the active with uncomfortable directness. People in Hollywood have paid their dues. They have worked their way up through assistant jobs, through years of building relationships and proving themselves. They do not appreciate someone whose primary qualification is marrying into royalty, demanding to direct major productions. The entitlement creates friction. The friction creates reputation. The reputation makes collaboration impossible. The only use Meghan retains with Netflix involves Princess Diana. There has been discussion of a potential documentary that would use Harry's connection to his mother as its foundation, but Prince William has apparently already lawyered up to prevent any such project from moving forward. The Wales legal team is prepared to fight, and Netflix knows that a Diana documentary over William's objections would create exactly the kind of controversy that damages relationships with the broader royal family. Relationships that might matter for future Crown seasons or other royal content. Netflix has officially cut ties with Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand as ever. Page 6 confirmed the split, reporting that since Meghan's show did not continue, maintaining the partnership no longer made sense from a business perspective. The streaming giant invested in jam, wine, and flower sprinkles, expecting that a successful lifestyle series would drive sales. The series failed. The investment became indefensible. The spin from Meghan's team deserves examination for its creative relationship with reality. The spokesperson said, "As ever is grateful for Netflix's partnership through launch in our first year and claimed the brand has experienced meaningful and rapid growth and is now ready to stand on its own." The statement promised an exciting year ahead without specifying what that excitement might involve. But here is what the statement did not address. A website glitch earlier this year accidentally revealed Meghan's actual inventory numbers, and those numbers tell a story that contradicts any claim of rapid growth. The glitch exposed that As Ever had approximately $21.80 $8 million worth of unsold stock sitting in warehouses. That total included over 80,000 tubs of edible flower sprinkles worth around $1.2 million. 80,000 tubs of sprinkles. Netflix's statement was carefully worded corporate diplomacy designed to preserve future relationships with other potential partners. They praised Meghan's passion for elevating everyday moments and said they were glad to have played a role in bringing that vision to life. But reading between the lines reveals a company eager to extract itself from an investment that produced no returns. They noted that Meghan will continue growing the brand and take it into its next chapter independently, which is corporate language for this is now entirely her problem. The timing raises questions about what Netflix actually knew and when they knew it. Did they see the inventory numbers before the glitch made them public? Did internal metrics show that with Love, Meghan was not driving meaningful traffic to the As Ever website? The streaming giant has sophisticated data analytics. They knew exactly how many viewers watched the show, how many clicked through to purchase products, how many converted into actual customers. That data apparently told them to walk away. The Jordan trip was supposed to rehabilitate Harry and Meghan's image as serious humanitarians. Instead, it has become another case study in how the Sussexes consistently misread situations, alienate potential allies, and create controversy where none needed to exist. The British ambassador to Jordan was reportedly blindsided by their arrival. They apparently showed up at an embassy event without being formally invited, then attempted to use their attendance as evidence that their visit carried official sanction. Angela 11 raised concerns that have since been amplified across multiple news outlets. Some individuals involved in organizing events attended by the Sussexes have reportedly had connections to organizations that others have linked to Hamas. Levin did not claim that Harry and Meghan were knowingly associating with any extremist groups. Instead, she argued that public figures must carefully vet the people and organizations behind the events they attend because failing to do so can sometimes lead to unintended associations or public controversy. Professional royal tours involve months of advanced work precisely to avoid these situations. Then Harry sat for a Channel 4 interview and made claims about humanitarian corridors to Gaza that prompted a public correction from Israel's deputy foreign minister. The Israeli official said Harry's statements were deeply disappointing and accused him of amplifying a false narrative. He invited Harry to actually visit Israel and see the humanitarian aid situation for himself before making pronouncements on camera. For a member of the British royal family, even a non-working one, to be publicly corrected by a foreign government official represents a diplomatic incident. The monarchy survives on neutrality. When someone carrying a royal title appears to take sides in the most contentious geopolitical conflict of the current era, it creates problems that ripple far beyond that individual's reputation. The Jordanian royal family's response was perhaps most telling. They are close personal friends with William and Catherine. Crown Prince Hussein and Prince William have watched football together. The families have genuine warmth. When Harry and Meghan arrived in Jordan, the Hashite royals were conspicuously absent. No meetings, no photo opportunities, no acknowledgement of their presence. Jordan's royal family chose loyalty to William over courtesy to Harry. And that choice speaks volumes about how the Sussex brand is perceived in circles that actually matter. Neil Sean has sources suggesting major changes are coming to Netflix's leadership structure within the next several months. If those changes materialize, the personal relationships that have protected Harry and Meghan could evaporate overnight. Ted Sarandos has been their champion within the company. His wife's friendship with Meghan, the Beyoncé concert appearance together, the willingness to give the Sussexes second and third chances despite underwhelming performance. All of it traces back to Sarandos believing in them personally. New executives will not share that history. They will look at spreadsheets showing how much Netflix invested in Sussex content versus how much return that content generated. They will see projects sitting in development for years without progress. They will note that Cookie Queens could not find a buyer despite Sundance exposure. They will calculate whether maintaining the First Look deal makes financial sense when the First Look keeps revealing nothing worth producing. The source close to Netflix painted a stark picture of what a leadership transition would mean for the Sussexes. You're yesterday's news. They explained who we can't see you. This is how television works. Relationships matter until they don't. Loyalty lasts until quarterly earnings demand accountability. The executives who take over after Sarandos will not remember attending Meghan's parties or feeling personally invested in her success. They will see underperforming assets and make business decisions. Meghan appears to believe that her connection to Sarandos protects her permanently, but entertainment industry protection has an expiration date, and that date often coincides with leadership transitions. The people who greenlit the Harry and Meghan documentary are not necessarily the people who will decide whether to renew the First Look deal. The industry is littered with producers who had relationships with one regime and found themselves orphaned when new executives arrived. The Jordan trip has intensified calls to remove Prince Harry from the line of succession entirely, echoing similar demands being made regarding Prince Andrew. The argument is straightforward. Harry uses his Duke of Sussex title for commercial ventures and unauthorized quasi-diplomatic activities. Every time he trades on that title while acting against the institution's interests, he reinforces the case for stripping it away. Using royal titles for business purposes while attacking the royal family creates an untenable situation. Harry profits from his connection to the monarchy through Netflix deals, book contracts, and speaking engagements. The value of those deals depends entirely on his royal identity. No one would pay millions for the memoir of a random British veteran who married an actress. They paid for a prince's story, but the prince keeps using the platform his birth provided to damage the institution that gave him that birth. The erratic quality of Harry's recent public appearances has not escaped notice. Observers commented that during his Jordan interviews, something seemed off. His energy fluctuated strangely. His responses sometimes wandered. The body language experts and amateur psychologists who populate social media had a field day analyzing footage. But even casual viewers noticed that the Harry appearing on screen did not project stability or gravitas. Every controversy reinforces the argument for action. Colombia raised questions. Nigeria created associations with individuals removed from the United States for financial crimes. Jordan produced the Hamas connections and the Israeli diplomatic correction. At some point, the accumulation of incidents makes inaction harder to justify than action. Charles has reportedly been reluctant to move against his son, but Charles is also watching the monarchy's reputation suffer repeated hits from Sussex activities he cannot control. The question is no longer whether Harry's titles create problems. The question is how much damage the institution will absorb before deciding the problems outweigh the family sentiment, preventing a response. Netflix has not officially ended its overall relationship with Harry and Meghan. The first-look deal apparently remains in place, though its duration and terms have not been made public. Projects remain in development, at least technically. The streaming giant has not announced that it will produce content about the Sussexes without their cooperation, but all the pieces are positioning themselves on the board. The Andrew documentary serves as a test case if audiences want to watch dramatizations of royal scandals. The Sussex story offers richer material than almost any alternative. The Crown team knows how to take real events and transform them into prestige television. Harry and Meghan have provided years of public drama, documented accusations, and endlessly analyzable contradictions. William's legal team is reportedly preparing for the Diana documentary fight. If Netflix decides to proceed with a project exploring Princess Diana's legacy through Harry's perspective, Kensington Palace appears ready to deploy whatever legal mechanisms exist to complicate or prevent production. This creates a standoff where Netflix must weigh potential Sussex content against potential Wales opposition, and the Wales represent the monarchy's future, while the Sussexes represent its past problems. The entertainment industry source offered a final observation that captures where things stand. Every project Harry and Meghan have announced since leaving the royal family has either failed to materialize, underperformed expectations, or created controversy that damaged their brand further. The pattern is consistent enough to constitute evidence. They secured initial deals based on curiosity about their royal exit. That curiosity has been satisfied. What remains is supposed to be demonstrated competence, and demonstrated competence remains elusive. The question now is whether Netflix's next major move regarding the Sussexes will be toward them or about them. They can continue the partnership, hoping something eventually works, or they can recognize that the real value in the Sussex story lies in telling it themselves to an audience that has already shown appetite for royal drama without the complications of actual Sussex involvement. The monarchy has survived for centuries by adapting to threats. Harry and Meghan represent a new kind of threat. Family members who left the institution but retained the titles, who attack the family while profiting from their connection to it, who generate controversy the palace cannot control but must somehow manage. Charles William and the advisors surrounding them are watching every Sussex move, calculating responses, preparing for contingencies. This story is far from over. The court cases continue. The Netflix relationship evolves. The Jordan fallout reverberates. The title questions intensify, and somewhere in California, a couple who bet everything on their ability to succeed outside the palace walls keeps discovering that the skills required for royal life differ heavily from the skills required for entertainment industry success. I want to hear your take on where this goes next. Comment below and hit subscribe if you have not.